So there was this interesting question on the community about merging two automation rules. Not exactly merging, but there was a question from Alexander about how can I move components from one automation to another automation rule. Now, in your automation rule, you do have an option to export them to a JSON file, which is fine. But if you open, let us say, one of the rule, you have these components, basically something like this. Like maybe you have this component which is an action. Let us say in this case we have add comment to this issue. Now, what if you want a component from some other rule? Let us say you have another rule where you have a component like create 3 subtasks, and you just want to move this particular component to that rule to some other rule. It is not really possible. However, there is a way of doing it. Now, for doing this, what I'll do, I'll export both the rules. The rule that I want to modify with an additional component that will come from some other rule. So the first thing that I'll do, I'll copy, maybe I'll basically export this rule, which is cascading. We are doing something with cascading, and I will basically bring in more rules, not really rules, but a component, we should say component from other rule. So this will be our target rule that we have to modify. I'll export it to a JSON, and what I'll do, I'll basically name it as target. So this is of course my target rule. And what I want to do, I want to basically bring in rules from some other rule, maybe bring a component from some other rule, like maybe this one, where we have create 3 subtasks. So what I'll do, I'll copy this as well. I'll basically export the rule, and I will name it as source. So a simple name. And what I'll do, I'll also go to my local computer and I'll modify both the rules. So we have to of course open the source, and this is of course the JSON file, which is not really in the right. It is not really in the right format, but we can copy it, I believe. And what I can try is I'll do something like Json Formatter. If you search online, you will find a lot of these examples. And what I want to do is I want to basically make sure that when I have the JSON here, I may want to just copy the component part and move it manually. So what I'm trying to do here is I will take out this component part, like individual component from one rule, and I will modify the JSON manually, and then I will import that modified JSON back to Jira. So this is something that we can do, and let us see how it works. So what I'll do, I'll copy the source JSON file, the whole. Let me just try to copy it. Okay, so I've copied this JSON, or basically opened this JSON file in my browser, which is the easiest thing that we can do. I'll copy it and I will paste it here, and I will do a validate of JSON. So this is my JSON rule, this is basically my rule in JSON, and I will copy it. I will then move it to my editor. Okay, so let me just get rid of this first. Okay, I'll copy and paste it here. Okay, so now we have this source, which is fine. It looks good. And we have, of course, these components. Now, the component that I was talking about is basically this is of course the component from where we have to copy one specific part called this subtask creation. So if you notice, we have this particular portion of the rule, and this is of course one of the JSON, one of the component, I should say. So this is something that we can copy and we can paste it to some other rules JSON. And what I'll do, I'll also make sure that I open the other rule here, which is of course my target. I'll open it and I will go back to my browser and I will modify this and open my test, or I should say target, not test. Target. This is my target instance, not instance, but target JSON. I'll copy it. I'll make sure it is using the right format. It is always good to validate the JSON, just to be 100% sure that there is no error in this. And maybe while we are on this page, I can just copy it from here, I believe. I can go back to my editor and I can paste it here again with the proper formatting. And what I want to do is I want to focus on one component that I want to add here. So I'll take a look at the component which is starting from this particular part, and then we have this component which we all can see here. So this is of course one component, and for each and every component you have this ID, and don't worry about the IDs, because when you import these rules, these IDs will be, and these will be, or these can be generated for you. So the first component is a condition. The second component is this action, and if you remember from the rule, we are basically adding a comment. So you can see here that this is one action that we can basically add our own action. And I also replied to this question on the community. So basically what we need to do, we need to copy this part and we need to just append it to our existing rules component section. And I can copy it from either from the community, or I can maybe take a look at my source rule. So I basically want to copy this part here, starting from this part of the rule, and just make sure that you copy the component and you have a valid JSON. So I'll just make sure the last line is the conditions, I believe, with one additional curly braces. So this looks good, and what I'll do, I'll copy this and I will go to my other rule, and maybe I can add it here after this. So I'm just appending one more condition here, or not condition but component. Okay, so copy and then paste. So it looks good to me now, and what I'll do, I'll go to my Jira instance and I will re-import this rule. And maybe when you are importing the rule, maybe you want to give it a different name. So if you look at the rule here, you have of course different things like the description of the rule and the name of the rule. I want to basically have a new name, which is cascading _ v2, so that we know that this is a different rule that we have just modified. So let us go back, and what we should be able to create is a new rule called cascading _ v2. So I'll go to my import rule, I will click on upload JSON, and then I will find the rule which is the target, and open. Let us see if it works. If the JSON is correct, the format is correct, then it should work. And maybe we can select this rule, to be applicable on maybe Android project, for example, and then click on next. Let us do this, and we should have hopefully a new rule. Let us see if we have a new rule, and I will click on this cascading underscore v2. So if you click on this rule, I'll probably click both the rules side by side. So this was our initial rule where we had this component called add comment to issue, and now we have one more rule, which is of course same as the previous one, but we do have this additional component that we were actually able to bring from some other rule. So it's a bit. I know it sounds a bit complicated. I mean, when you're modifying the JSON files, but it is a possibility. I think it is always good to play with the JSON files, and as long as the JSON format is correct, and of course, as long as when you are working on the rules, if you also have the valid entities in place. For example, if you're talking about adding a subtask or creating a subtask or maybe modifying something with a custom field, those IDs should be relevant. So for example, in this case, we added this particular, let me just increase the size. It's a bit too small. So we added these, in our new component that we just added, we are adding subtask. And as long as you have the type IDs, the issue type IDs relevant, it will work. And it is, of course, a way to merge, kind of a merge that we just did of two different rules. And I thought I'll share this interesting thing that you might want to do in case you want to do something similar. So that is all I wanted to talk about in this video, and I hope you enjoyed watching this video and you also learned something new today. Thank you very much.